Portugal? A small, peaceful country far from war and global chaos, right? Wrong. What I'm about to tell you is something most people totally miss. The world's biggest superpowers, the US, China, and even Russia, are all fighting for influence over this tiny slice of land on the edge of the Atlantic. But why? What does Portugal have that could actually shift the balance of global power? In the next few minutes, you'll uncover a truth that's been hidden for decades, and it might just redefine Portugal's role in the future of the planet. At first glance, Portugal seems like just another small European country. Pretty beaches, old cities, and chill vibes. But when you look at it through the eyes of the global power players, the map shows something way more valuable. A killer strategic location. Portugal is basically the front door to Western Europe, the first stop coming in from the Atlantic, and that makes it one of the hottest spots for anyone playing the game of global control. The Azores and Madeira Islands? They're not just dreamy vacation spots. They're floating outposts in the middle of the ocean, perfect for military surveillance, electronic spying, refueling jets and running naval ops. They sit in a zone crisscrossed by undersea internet cables, major shipping lanes and potential military routes. Controlling these points is like having eyes and ears right in the middle of the Atlantic, and in today's high-stakes world, that's pure gold. That's why the US has quietly held a strong position in the Azores for decades, with largest air base. But they're not the only ones. China's been sliding in too, through low-key diplomacy and major economic moves, trying to get their hands on strategic zones like the Port of Signs. That port is a key gate for global trade. Modern wars aren't just about tanks anymore. They're about data, supply routes, and access. And guess what? Portugal is smack in the middle of it all, the craziest part. Most Portuguese people have no idea how big of a deal their country really is in the global power game. While they're living their everyday lives in peace behind the scenes, the chessboard is on fire, and Portugal is one of the top pieces in play. Tucked away in the middle of the Atlantic, on Terceira Island in the Azores, sits a military base that most people have never even heard of, but it's absolutely critical to the US, Lajes Air Base. From the outside, it just looks like another military airport. But in reality, it's one of the most strategic spots on Earth for the US Air Force. In times of war, crisis, or global tension, this base becomes a bridge between America and Europe, and it's been running like that for decades, almost totally under the radar. Back during the Cold War, Lajes was a major hub for NATO and crucial to controlling the North Atlantic. Now, with global tensions heating up again, it's back in the spotlight. From here, the US can refuel aircraft, track submarines, and even monitor Russian activity. If global war ever kicks off, this low-profile base might be the first to go, active, or the first to get hit. The US knows this. That's why even while cutting costs elsewhere in Europe, they've kept a tight grip on the Azores. Specialists, gear, high-tech planes, everything's carefully stationed and ready. But what most folks don't realize is that this also means surveillance, political influence, and secret deals that never make the news. Sure, Portugal gets investments and support, but in return, it gives up something even more valuable: exclusive access to the heart of the Atlantic. And while all this plays out, most people in Portugal just think of the base as some leftover relic from World War II. But for the US military and defense analysts, Lajes is a game changer, a key piece that could tip the scales in a global conflict. It's not just a base. It's a symbol of America's direct involvement in shaping Portugal's geopolitical future. While the US locks down its military game, China's playing a different kind of chess, quiet, economic, but just as powerful. In recent years, Chinese companies have bought into key sectors across Portugal: energy, telecoms, insurance, healthcare, and even the management of strategic ports like Signs. On paper, it's all just business. But if you're reading between the lines, it's a clear power move in the global influence war. Take the Port of Signs, the biggest deep-water port in Portugal and the closest European port to the Panama Canal. That makes it a prime spot for shipping between Asia and the Americas. That's why China's been hustling hard to get concessions there. If they lock in control, they'll have a solid foothold on Europe's Atlantic coast, and that's got the US and EU sweating. But China's game goes deeper than just ports. It's in the small deals, the business ties, the cultural exchanges. The goal? Build a subtle, long-lasting web of influence. Instead of bases and weapons, China's weapon of choice is contracts, cash, and soft power diplomacy. And Portugal, needing foreign investment, has become fertile ground for this quiet takeover. Right at the heart of Europe's energy shift, Portugal has become an unlikely MVP. While other countries are still hooked on fossil fuels, Portugal already gets over 60% of its electricity from renewables, sun, wind, water. That green energy pivot hasn't gone unnoticed, especially now that energy is basically a weapon on the global stage. Whoever controls clean, sustainable sources holds economic power, independence, and serious international clout. But it's not just electricity on the table. Portugal's sitting on lithium, one of the 21st century's most valuable minerals, crucial for EV batteries and green tech. Plus, it's positioning itself as a leader in green hydrogen, the next big thing in clean fuel. Companies from Germany, France, the US, and China are all lining up to get a slice of the action. This puts Portugal right in the middle of an economic and tech battleground. The big dogs aren't just eyeing land, they're after what it represents. A cutting-edge energy lab with rare strategic resources. Bottom line, Portugal's become a key link in Europe's green future, and whoever plants their flag now could end up controlling tomorrow's economy. While superpowers fight over influence with military force, billion-dollar investments, and backdoor politics, Portugal's playing a whole different game: strategic silence. Instead of picking sides or diving into conflicts, Portugal has kept its foreign policy cool, balanced, and low-key. Some call it passive, but it's actually high-level chess, one that earns Portugal access, respect, and cooperation from all sides at once. Portugal helped found NATO, is tight with the US, keeps strong trade ties with China, and has deep cultural connections with countries like Brazil, Angola, and Mozambique. It usually backs the EU on economic and environmental issues, but without getting too cozy with any single power. This flexibility turns Portugal into a quiet mediator, often used as a neutral zone for delicate talks and behind-the-scenes deals. It's invisible power, but real. While the giants clash, Portugal stands dead center on the board, free to talk to everyone. And in today's world, where trust is rare and global balance is razor-thin, being the one who can talk to both sides is a superpower on its own. Portugal is at the heart of a global game, and almost no one sees it. If you want to uncover what they're really hiding about politics, geostrategy, and world power, this is the right channel. Hit subscribe now, because what's coming next will blow your mind.